And then that reminded me of a study I saw about a month ago. A professor at the University of Munich, he looked at ChatGPT 5 when it first came out because, OpenAI had said it's so much better at writing. And he studies the impact of AI and religion and culture. His name is Christoph Heilig. And he, had ChatGPT 5 do some fiction writing, and he thought it was better than past models. It did better. It was better at show don't tell. It didn't lay everything out so literally, and he said there were strokes of brilliance that he saw, but overall it was using like really weird metaphors that didn't make any sense at all. So just and then it would defend them. It was like the hill that it would die on, that this was a perfect metaphor. So
Wow.
let me give you an example. So he had it do a satirical piece about a podcaster that makes fun of German bureaucracy. And the metaphor it came up with was, I adjusted the pop filter as if I wanted to politely count the German language's teeth. Like, what?
What? What does that even mean?
What does it mean? And he went back and forth with ChatGPT 5, saying like this doesn't make any sense at all, and it just insisted that it did. Then it did it again. There was it was a character was reflecting on how pointless it is to always be promised jam tomorrow or in a moment. And it said, in a moment, in a moment. Well, in a moment is like a dress without buttons.
That's funny. I mean, it's like little kids when they're learning how to tell a joke. They have the form of a joke, but not the content of a joke, like what
Yeah.
yeah,
Like knock
what do you
knock.
call
But
yeah, yeah, and they don't know how or like, yeah, what did my friend's kid said something like, "What do you get with when you cross an elephant with a door?" I don't know, but it's really fat and skinny or something like that, and it which almost makes sense, but yeah, but then also how do we adapt? I mean, I always remind myself that the forms, like metaphors themselves, like I'm working on a project right now that involves a lot of texts from ancient Mesopotamia, and it's a wildly different approach to writing, in part influenced by they were, writing in clay and writing with it just was took longer and it was sort of a more costly experience. And when we think of whether it's the novel or the long form magazine article or whatever, those are all created at least in part around certain technologies of the time. Obviously the printing press transformed the nature of the written word. So um, I try and fight against the instinct of thinking like everything should be a New Yorker article
Mhm.
because and think like the New Yorker came about because of a particular moment. In fact, because of the car and the truck created this network of national magazines and it had a particular place and time and still does. But I don't know. I think some people are going to figure out cool ways to use these, but I also think there'll be a lot of crap. But there's already a lot of crap. There's always a lot of crap.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because he actually ended up really getting into it and ran 3,000 different tests on different kinds of text that it had generated itself. And so he started with this base sentence. So it was, the man walked down the street, it was raining, he saw a surveillance camera. And then he had made all these different variations of, or he had AI make all these different variations of it and then score it. So he found that there were patterns. So ChatGPT really, and Claude actually really liked exaggerated physical references. So the marrow knew the street, rain touched sinew, the camera watched his corpus. It gave that an 8 out of 10.
That gets a 0 out of 10. Wow.
Thought it was fabulous.
Yeah.
And then even nonsense. So it seems like it likes really extreme words. So sinew genuflected, eigen state of theodosy, existential void beneath fluorescent hum leviathan, entropy's bitter aftertaste. Again, 8 out of
It just
10.
wow, trips off the tongue. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Wow. Yeah, I was doing this project where we just needed a bunch of fake names and names of companies, and it really had it seemed like it had like 12 and it just kept using the same ones over and over again. I remember Sarah Chen came up in every single group um of names and
Yes.
and they're like evergreen. It loved anything called evergreen, evergreen financial, evergreen supermarket, whatever. Because of my work, we do a lot of like business, like come up with a business plan. It loves VR. Everything's VR. If you went into particularly ChatGPT and said, what should help me think of the quick and dirty business plan, I guarantee it's going to tell you to start doing VR. So it's interesting that I haven't come across the, $20 word portion of ChatGPT, but there was something novelistic that triggered some obsession. That's fascinating.
Yeah, no, I'm reminded there was, I called this I had calling all Emilys and Sarahs back in the AI SideQuest newsletter a few months ago. There was a paper that showed that ChatGPT overrepresented Emily and Sarah in.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, Sarah Chen specifically in my use cases, but yeah, that's
yeah. That's a known
yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
so I think, like, the takeaway is, again, you need human evaluators. If you're looking at, whether the fiction output from AI is good or not, you kinda can't trust, AI to evaluate it seems like.
Yeah, there is a thing I know that the LLM companies use called auto rater where they'll just run it through an auto rating. And I think in like narrow, if you have really narrow interests, like just are these coherent English, subject, object, verb kind of thing? Like, is it producing sentences? Is it producing, um,
Yeah.
like, is it around the right word length if that's a thing you care about? But I'd say qualitatively, I would think we're a ways off from them being able to reliably do it. But with all of this, I assume that's all we are is a ways off. It's not some. Sorry, my camera keeps zooming in and out.
That's okay.
We're not fundamentally. I don't know. It just seems like every time I someone says LLMs fundamentally can't do X Y Z within a week, you hear, oh no, they can do it now.
True, true, and
Um,
there's a new Claude model.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.